Hello. Starting these things is weird because I can't really tell what's going on. So when I first started it just a second ago, it said it had 2 concurrent viewers, and now it's dropped down to 0. I guess what I'll do is I'll start to work on the file stuff like I've been doing for a while, and then if people show up, then we will go into I'll start going over iOS 14 and oh, now somebody's here, maybe. Hello, person. I hope you're having a good week and looking forward to the weekend. So what I was saying is today I want to cover the new iPad OS 14 stuff, which there's a lot of the things that I covered last week that's in the regular iOS 14 that's also in here. This is just the iPad specific stuff. And then I wanted to get into communication as it relates to business growth. Particularly like if you're starting a business or if you've got a medium-sized business, how do you begin to build a communication strategy and do it in an intentional way as to impact culture and things like that. Our culture, quality, visibility, whatnot. Anyway, so there's one person here, and I think I'll wait just a little bit to see if anybody else shows up. So we'll see. If you are that one person, could you type something so I could tell if you're real? Because sometimes it shows one person, and I'm not exactly sure if there actually is one person, because my viewer here might count, but it might not. Not sure. Alright, so I don't know if anybody's here, so I'm just gonna do what I want. And right now what I want to do is finish up some of this documentation. Stuff I was working on before. And the last time we got through a lot of the random parts of one of my old coworkers' file structure. I think we actually. Oh no. I was going to say I think we actually got pretty much done, which relative to where we started, we definitely are pretty much done. But we still got a little bit of work to do. It'd be good to get through that one person at least. Mm. Hmm. Oh, I forgot I can't tap the table because it sounds obnoxious to those listening. So there's a folder in here called Work and Work Recent. Let's see, I got some annual review. That's just a template. Oh. It has been a silly, silly week in some ways. I've had a lot of different conversations this week, specifically around culture and communication, which is what led me to want to talk about it this week. It's definitely a trying time to try. It's a trying time to attempt to maintain culture and communication while simultaneously also trying to just wait COVID out. So I believe that that's not going to be something that that people are going to do, because we're starting to, we're 6 months into it, and so we've already crossed the line, I believe, where we've got to just start adjusting to the new norm, because even after this thing ends, things are going to be different. In what way? Not 100% sure. All we do know is that the chances of things going exactly back to the way they were are not very likely. Let's see, what do we got here? Got some raw call stats from our old system. Okay, old operations help desk. Raw stats. just found a redundant folder in my old folder. So I had a folder that was for weekly call stats from our old system, and then I found one that was called raw call stats from our old system. So I get to combine those. One less thing. Anyways, back to what I was saying. It does seem like more people are paying attention to culture and specifically how that relates to communication lately, which I find to be very positive, because I believe in the past culture was more of a unintentional outcome of like the behaviors and actions we put into things, whereas now with the separation of the workforce, folks are going to put a lot more effort into the components that build up their culture. So like for instance, if you've read 5-Star Leadership, which actually let me look up who wrote that so I can credit it appropriately. Where is my browser? Oh, there it is. It's called 5-Star Leadership: The Art and Strategy of Creating Leaders at Every Level. It's been a while since I've read this book, but essentially there are multiple different types of leaders, and in my opinion, a leader builds, or like a culture can surround the leader and the decisions and behaviors that they make and embody. And so, one of the types of leaders is the in everything, pushing everything, like doing everything type of leader, which I've met before in the industry I work in, where everything kind of channels through, like the CEO will say. So the CEO is dealing with operational fires. They're dealing with sales, the sales pipeline. They're dealing with every aspect of the company, and in that case they are a glue. And so what does that do for the culture? So in my opinion, it builds a culture around satiating that person, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be, depending on the person's personality. So if their personality is just like, we're in this together, but I'm doing everything, then they'll kind of cheer him on, root for him, and stuff like that. And especially if he, and I say he because the person I'm thinking about is a he. But if that person is, if that person's good at taking criticism, then that type of cultural aspect will trickle down, because criticism will just be something that is accepted. However, if a person is in that position and they are not good at taking criticism, and maybe they're not the best communicators or what have you, then that culture will be pervasive through the company, unless there's somebody who's a stronger personality, who interacts with a large portion of the team in order to kind of counteract that one leader's methodology. I guess I don't really know the best way to say that, but all of that to say, like, a culture can be different depending on the leader if there's no intent behind it. So you're in that type of situation and you have to break up and move out to different areas. It's up to that leader to then reach out to every single person and manage all the communication. And like maybe they were somebody who gets up and walks over to somebody's desk before and has a conversation, but that person's desk is near somebody else's desk, and then they hear the conversation and then they're the better for it, even though it wasn't meant for them. Whereas now it's just the leader and the individual having the conversation, and no one else is included in the primary conversation. And when I say primary, I mean like the actual event where the leader is speaking to the employee about whatever it is that they're talking about. Secondary conversations would be that employee turning around and talking to other employees or disseminating the information in some way, shape, or form. But the means at which you do that nowadays appears to be something that you have to be much more intentional about. And that's kind of what I want to get in a little bit, because like I said, this week I have been talking to quite a few folks about just this thing. Either their culture is deteriorating, or maybe it's not deteriorating, it just feels like it's out of control because there's so much of a mix-up going on with everybody being at home. Well, I kind of want to jump into the topic, but I kind of don't. I had it worked out to where I go through the iPad stuff and then I draw some visuals on the iPad using some of the new features with the pencil and whatnot, which is going to be very fancy, but I'm not sure how I want to pull that off. Let me get through the remainder of this one person's files, and then we'll jump into the things. And also, towards the end, I'm going to cover COVID transmission numbers for the state of Tennessee and also Davidson County, which is something I do on a weekly basis anyways. And then I will take that out. Yeah. Not really relevant to everybody, but something that I do on a regular basis for employees of G Squared. Ooh, I got a Twitter logo. Negative. So old operations, sales, slides. Create all the images folder, but I'll do that later. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build in. So the reporting, we've got call reporting, we've got time reporting, basically just like what we get from our I don't even know what you call it. It's left me. Basically reporting from clocking in, clocking out type thing. And so we got call, ticket, and personnel reporting. And so instead of just having it all thrown into one folder, I'm going to create a big folder and then have 3 subfolders to make it cleaner. And when I'm in here creating a new folder, I just hit Control-Shift-N or call stats, and it brings up a folder that you can automatically rename. And then I'm scrolling all the way. I select the first one, I scroll all the way down, hit shift, and the second one it highlights everything. Scroll back up, and then just drop those things into the folder. That's a ticketing report. Procure 30. Premium stats. I wonder what that is. It's an Excel file, and it doesn't have anything. Premium call snapshot. Nothing. Premium call reporting. More call reporting. At least we can get through this stuff pretty quick. Got an old job description. From 2010. Let's see. G2 Finance. Got a budget report from October 2010. Cool. I think this is support. Got an old client list from 2010, which is good to see because there's some clients that we had back then that I just can't remember. Like Simonton. I would not have remembered them. Old support document, replace the file. Scope templates. An old client thing. So I've only got one more folder after this, and then we'll jump into the advertised content. G2 annual month report. Alright, that one's done. So he's got a work folder and then a work recent folder, which it looks like the other stuff was 2010 and then this is 2011. So let's go to phones, operations, help desk. Let's pull out all this reporting. Bop, 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 bop. Ooh, there's a document with my name on it. I wonder what that is. Alright, let's see what this says. Let me share. So this is about me, so I feel completely comfortable. Yeah, okay. So Charlie, 4 days per week operationally with responsibilities include short-tail hardware and software, including setup of clients and agents, the auto attendant, client schedules, global call manager updates, the sonic wall firewall, including how to set up users and how to use VPN to access the network remotely, managing vendor relationships with telco partners for voice and data, always leads and opens tickets when necessary with vendor outages. Dave Cornell, who was our old IT guy, our original IT guy, and program management with Nate. Nate's our old CEO. Recommended regular weekly or bi-weekly calls. So this is just a job description. I think this is when, let me see what year it's from. This is from 2011. So this is after I'd started, this is when I started to take over operations, because this person moved off and I took over for the role. So this must have been a job description he was creating for me. Web help desk ticketing and server management, including annual VeriSign renewals. Web help desk is our ticketing tool. Duplicates are the feeds, maintenance, new clients, remote access from server, ordering hardware and software. I used to have a project that I would run every time we hired a new employee, where I would go through and make sure they had all their physical and physical equipment and licenses. And I guess that came from here. Documentation of relevant company and infrastructure logins and passwords, basic understanding of hardware, including switches, servers, panels, and which I didn't know anything about it at the time, but I definitely know a lot more now than I used to about office infrastructure, specifically from a hardware and networking perspective. Access remotely and reboot an emergency, understanding PoE and data switches. So PoE in this case stands for Power over Ethernet, which is how our phones are managed, or are powered, because they don't have physical plug-ins. Well, that's neat. Don't come across too many things in these that reference me. All right, let's see where that goes. Cost to hire document from 2010. Doggone it. G2 employees, job descriptions. Also got so around the time I started taking over for that, there was another person that was promoted to the floor manager, and his responsibilities included making sure that people were on phone calls. Let's see, blah. And so his shows is call queue management and all that kind of stuff. So he was the person who was specifically responsible for making sure that all the people were taking phone calls so we could make SLAs. And I've mentioned before that SLAs are service license agreements, which are contractual obligations that we can be penalized for if we don't make, if a penalty is called out in the contract. If it's not called out, then we can be, at most we can be held, the most accountability we can be held to is that we're not providing the scope that's in the contract, and essentially we could, our clients have a reason to void the contract without any kind of penalties, our early term stuff. So let's see, that's pretty good. So I've got 13 more documents and then I'll be done with this. See, there's a vendor info thing. Oh, also got the Series 6 iWatch this past week. I've been testing it. I had the Series 4 before, which didn't have always on display, and so I've been testing it with the always on enabled, and I'm not really sure I like it because it drains the, like, I was getting 2 solid days easy out of my Series 4, and one of the reasons I didn't get the 5 is because the bigger screen and the always on display, even if I didn't use it, would eat more battery, and so the battery lifetime on it wasn't nearly as long. But with this one having the A13 internals, it's supposed to have a really good battery life, and so even with the screen being like, I think 250% brighter than the Series 5, I'm still only getting a day and a half on average. And I'm trying to figure out if I can work like a recharge schedule into that, because the Series 6 only takes an hour and a half to charge from 0 to 100. And so if I can do that, oh, and also on your iPhone now, you get a neat little notification whenever your watch is charged all the way. But if I can't, I'm just going to turn it off and treat it like I did the Series 4. One thing that this does have that I really like is a compass. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's got a compass, but then it's also got an altimeter. So it says my elevation right now is 658 feet. I actually don't know if that's true. But it gives you your latitude and longitude. And I know in buildings at least, sometimes it gets screwy because it can't pick up on whatever it needs to pick. I mean, I guess there's a magnet in it somewhere, or a way to detect the magnetism. But whatever the bearing is, it's consistent with where I'm at right now. Anyways, I like it a lot. It's neat. One thing I don't like about it is the selection of faces. So I'm still just using the face that I used last time, and I think I've got one other. Oh yeah. I do. I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me see if I can get this. Oh, nope. That's pretty cool. And then I've got the photos one, which obviously this one's pretty cool for obvious reasons. But they're just not as informative as the dial one that I use. So I've got this one customized to have like basically every quick shortcut that I need. And so I don't know if it's a terrible thing that I'm sticking with the same watch face for the 3rd year in a row, but it's always new. It's always nice to change stuff every now and again. Anyways, let's see. that is support. So let's go here on GT old, GT operations, support. Got a management team structure. Oh, okay. So this is so I just opened a document that says management team structure, and specifically what it does is it calls out everybody on the management team and then gives them specific responsibilities. Like so one guy's responsibilities are reporting, and so it's client stats and keeping records of weekly raw stats, amongst many other things. And then one is me. Let's see what mine were. I was over operations, setup and maintenance of technology and infrastructure, work with agent and client management teams and on any escalated issues, ensure documentation knowledge-based information is updated and accurate. And that's just a few of them. So that's definitely support. Shoreware system license. I don't even know what shoreware is. Seems like it would be something to do with ShoreTel. And there's an IP justification. Oh, that's Comcast. So we get the internets through Comcast, and not only do we have fiber through them, which is our main internet connection, we've also got a backup through them, which having a backup through the same company, not ideal, but in this case we do it because it's a different technology. Usually if fiber goes out, the cable's up, and if the cable goes out, the fiber's still up, regardless of which provider it is. But we need, in the office at least, we need redundant internet because we can't suffer outages, because we do have an SLA, which is like what I referenced before around uptime, and it's like 98.5% of the time. That might be wrong. Either way, it equals about 4 hours a month that we can be down, but we rarely ever do that. We have people that are, I wouldn't say they're direct competitors, but they do help desk stuff, and when they have like office meetings and stuff like that, they'll shut the help desk down to pull all the agents at once and do it, which is a strategy, but it's not one that we subscribe to, because we one, it's a pain to manage, getting everybody in the office all at once when you do 24/7 services, and then two, it's our clients would not appreciate that at all. So we do a staggered schedule. Usually if we do like a quarterly meeting or something like that, we wind up doing 3, 4, 5 different meetings. And so if I'm presenting on a specific topic, I'll talk about it 5 times, up to 5 times in a day. which, obviously you should feel bad for me because it's awful, but it's nothing compared to like what our trainers have to deal with, because they're going through, like, we've got one trainer that keeps everybody up on the weekly changes and whatnot. We call it TLDRs, which stands for too long didn't read, because we send out all of our process changes out through email, but then we found that this extra touch point gives people one-on-one time to kind of cover it. And so the trainer in that case is going through an entire week presenting on the same stuff. And so he's either presenting on the same stuff or building the next week's content. And I'm sure that gets pretty redundant or pretty monotonous at times. And I say that we've actually got two people that do that. One person does it for the help desk, and he's got a lot more people to deal with every week. And then another person does it for our e-team procurement teams, and he only has 7 or 8 people he has to do every week, but he puts a lot of time and effort into his PowerPoints, and they look good, and they're oftentimes relevant to what's going on. Like, I remember, I think it was when The Mandalorian was coming out. No, it was when Solo was coming out. He had a whole Star Wars themed presentation. It was really cool. I'm pretty sure it was Solo. Not to hate too much, but the new Star Wars stuff has been lackluster to me, so it's hard for me to remember what's what. I actually walked out of The Rise of Skywalker before it was over. I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't seen it, but there are pieces of it that are very hard to deal with from a story perspective. But I digress. Alright, so I finished up the folders there, so let's kind of get into this then. Let me hook up the iPad to my and then we'll get into some iPad OS 14 stuff. I don't know if I really like the naming convention on it. So it's iOS 14 and iPad OS 14. What are you doing here? Outlook. Goodbye. All right. So let me pull this up on OBS. Okay. Cool. Pull up my notes. So the aspect ratio on the iPad is not the same as my screen, and so I can't get it to fit perfectly. So there's this black bar below my face that folks just got to deal with, because I don't want to clip anything on the iPad screen in case it's relevant. Okay, so how far are we into it? Dag, it's already been 44 minutes? Is that right? Yeah, it's 1:45. Boy, how time flies. Oh, also, on a personal note, like, this streaming stuff is it's new and a little scary to me. So, like, for instance, I've only been doing this a few weeks, and when I started, I'd just get on, I'd do work, wouldn't have anything, and now I'm starting to proactively work beforehand to put together content to provide during these things. But as I'm doing that, I feel like a pressure kind of building, and it's not the most pleasant thing ever, and it makes me not want to do it. But just like public speaking, I've had to make a decision that I'm going to do it anyways, so whether I want to or not. And then the intent is to hopefully build like a skill set and a workflow around this whole thing, so I can provide good content in an entertaining way consistently. Those are the three things: good content, entertaining, and maybe you could say entertaining, or good content is entertaining, but like relevant content that's entertaining consistently. Write that down. Okay. So in last week's video, we went through and did all the iOS 14 stuff. And so if you want to check that out, there's an individual video on the channel. It's an hour long, but it's got all of the new features, and specifically I go into my iPhone and show how to get to all the different things. And I go in depth as far as like what they do, why that matters, and all that kind of stuff. So to start off with, we're going to talk about the widgets on the iPad. iPads have had widgets on the main screen since iOS 13, and so that's nothing new. But with the new widget support on the iPhone, the iPad is also getting all the widgets. And the only difference being that the widgets are over here on the left side. So you can still do smart stacks and things like that. So I can just take this and then stack it on top of this widget, and then I've got a smart stack. And so you see here. So I've got that, and then I don't know what this map thing is. Got productivity. Is there anything I want to put in here? So let's see. Do a plus, and then I pull up all my widgets here. And so in here, so in here you've got all your different widgets and whatnot, and so you can use whatever's in here, but then also any kind of apps that put out widgets for their apps will be in here as well. So like I said, it supports everything. You just can't put them on your home screen right now. So let me just grab. I'll just do this Google search one and put it right there. I could put it in the smart stack, but I'm not gonna. And the other thing to note is that if I make a smart stack out of the weather and my calendar, and they're the same thing, when it comes time to go to a meeting, or if a meeting is, if it's coming up, the smart stack will automatically switch the widget to the most relevant one. Hence the name smart stack. Okay. So I said, all right. So you can't put the widgets everywhere. The other major thing is that there's no app drawer on the iPad. That's kind of a bummer, because I like to have a pretty smooth interaction with my operating system, which is why I liked Android for the longest time. I still prefer stock Android over anything else, but iPhone iOS made a lot of strides this year in helping out with that, with the customization specifically. But on the iPad, you just don't get the extra thing, or the app drawer, which is kind of a bummer. Oh, excuse me. It's kind of a bummer, because I like the ability to go into the app drawer, find the app I want to, and then pull it out and put it on whatever page I want. So the search updates, let me just do this. So if you pull down on the screen, or if you've got a keyboard, you can hit Command space. It'll pull up this search here. When you're doing the search, in the past, you'd have to pull it up and then you have to select what you want by clicking on it. Now you can search for, like, we'll just do notes, and then hit go, and it automatically pulls up the application. Whereas it didn't do that before. But you also get different searches and things like that. So it'll search in notes, and you've got anything that comes up, you can click on, and it'll search the internet, pull stuff up in Safari or Chrome if Chrome is your default browser. And so that's pretty cool. It's not a huge change, but it's definitely worth mentioning. The biggest thing, you know what? Actually, before I get into the biggest updates, what I want to do is I had an honorable mentions piece to the iPhone thing, which is a lot longer, but in this one, there's still a couple. So if you use Apple Music, which I don't personally, there's a lyrics section, and you can do full screen song lyrics in Apple Music now. And I can't show it because I don't have it, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter to me what it does. But that's worth noting if you like reading lyrics to songs and you use Apple Music. And then if you've got a physical keyboard, like so, here's my physical keyboard, and then normally I just flip this around. It sits on top of right here. If you hit and hold this little globe button, it brings up the emoji keyboard, or the emoji keyboard. And so here, I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll just hit Command space, and then Safari, enter. And so if I'm putting in here, I'm pressing and holding the globe, and then it brings up the emoji thing right here. And so then you get your emoji stacks. And then I think, at least on the iPhone, you could search emojis. God, there's a lot of emojis. But it doesn't look like there's a search function in here. I'll look in more of that. Or I'll look more into that later. And so those are the two main things. The biggest piece this year with regards to the iPad, though, is the pen stuff. And so the pen stuff is really cool. I don't know if you guys have ever used an Apple Pencil before, but it's a pretty cool experience. So I've got a black screen here because I use dark mode and everything I possibly can. If you use the light mode, though, they got rid of the paper texture in the Notes app, which is fine by me because I never really liked that anyways. But as you can see here, like, this is just me scribbling on the thing here. And if you double tap the pencil, this is something that is not new, but if you double tap the pencil, then it goes to the eraser. And when you're holding the pencil up and down like this, it erases a small amount, so like that. And if you hold the pencil more sideways, it erases a large amount all at once. So that's pretty cool. So let's see here. Oh, gotta double tap it and switch it back. Hello world. So what you can do now is in the Notes app specifically is you can highlight any text you have. So you can see that. So I can highlight this, and then let's see here. It thinks it's HL. But you can see, like, in the upper right, it kind of tells me what I've got written there, and it includes the exclamation point. There should be, no, I guess there's not. Let's just check boxes. Alright, so I can highlight it and I can move it around, and then like I said, if let's see, move it back here, grab all of this, I can move this around. That's pretty cool. Let's see, text can copy, and so I can copy this, and then, like, let's say let's see, copy here, and then I go over to Safari, and then it's not wanting to work. Alright, let me go back. Okay. Now we're getting into some issues. Because what it's supposed to do... Oh, wait, no, I hit the wrong thing. So copy as text. And then I come in here. There we go. And then paste it. And that cloud is... I guess it's just because I've got a break. It's just my handwriting. Anyway, so you can copy stuff from handwritten notes into any text field on the iPad, which is pretty cool. And then another cool thing here is, like, if I want to draw a circle, I do that. But if I really want to draw a perfect circle, I draw the circle and then I hold my pen down at the end, and it makes it into a perfect circle. So I'll kind of show this on the screen here. Let me actually make sure that you guys can see. Alright, so all I'm doing is I'll do it with a triangle this time. Triangle, I just keep my pencil down, it shows me the preview, and I let go, and then it does a perfect triangle. And that's a 45, 45, 45 triangle. But I think you can make obtuse, is that the right word? Acute triangles? I don't know. Anyways, you can change this stuff. You can have just plain old right angles. You can have rectangles. And then let me see if I can copy this, or not copy, but highlight, and then let's see, can I rotate it? No, I can't rotate it, but I can move it over. And so what some people are doing is they're using this to do like simple layouts, like they'll draw their their room to scale, and then they'll draw the furniture to to relative scale, and then they'll just shuffle it around. That's the only like neat practical application I've seen so far, but I can see it working out for a lot of people in a lot of different creative ways. I'm just not that creative of an individual. So let's go back over to this. So any text field on the iPad now, you can use your pencil. And so I feel like that allows for a lot more usability out of the pencil, because in the past it's been kind of hit or miss as far as whether you use it or not. So let's go to google.com. And so I just write it in, it changes it to text, and then I hit search. And so it puts it in here. So it searches for this. So let's see, iPad OS 14. Oh, I thought I did 5. OS. So I guess it's not perfect, but it's still pretty cool. And then if you'll notice down here at the bottom, there's an abridged. So it detected that I was writing with my hand, and so it gives me all the relevant buttons down here at the bottom. And then if I click the little keyboard, it brings up a small keyboard too. So that is pretty neat. Definitely something I'm going to be working with more in the future. For the past couple of months, I haven't been big on the iPad because I was trying to initially work off of my MacBook Air, but then the MacBook Air ran out of space, and so I switched over to using the PC that I'm using right now to do the stream and stuff. And so I've been putting a lot of effort into getting everything set up just the way I like it. And so this has been on the back burner, but I find the iPad to be a pretty effective work tool, from a remote perspective. And while you can't do everything on an iPad, you can do a lot of stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah. And so there's Scribble, and the last thing with regards to Scribble are Scribble gestures. So let's see here. How Scribble work. Okay, so that is just wrong. So that's something I don't know how to do. I don't know how to. Can I touch it? Should I do this? All right, so I wrote this wrong. So you can erase stuff by either striking it, just doing a line strike, or scribbling over it. So we'll just do this. Uh-oh, that highlighted it. Okay, so I was wrong. So I guess you got to do this. So it gets rid of it, and so we're gonna back up. So you saw that I can just do this to highlight stuff, which for me that's really good, because if you're in some sort of document or something like that, like highlighting specific words on iOS, kind of a pain. At least on the devices that didn't have 3D touch. Yeah. So we've got the scribble out, and then the line highlights, also circling something highlights it, and then you've got like if you want to insert a space or remove a space, you just draw a line between two words. So if you saw that, like I just drew a line down and it broke it up, and and then I can take and do a line like that, and it puts a space in there too. And then there is oh yeah, and so triple tapping on so triple tapping on a word highlights the entire sentence or paragraph or whatever the largest aspect of, or the largest grouping of words you got going on here is. I don't know if you guys can see the highlighted stuff. So it's light blue on mine, but then when I look on the screen up here, it doesn't appear to have anything in it. So either way, you can highlight it like that, and then is there anything else? Okay, and then tapping and holding on a space opens up. So if I tap in between the Google and the search, it's supposed to, there we go, it's supposed to move it over. There we go, and then I can just enter whatever I want in there. And so that's gestures, and that's the long and short of it. Like I can't really find, like, it's as far as like the iOS 14 for the iPhone, this is a lot less helpful, and there's a lot less to cover, because iOS 13 for the iPad, or iPad OS 13, was a lot more robust. There were way more changes in it than there is this year. But still, a lot of welcome improvements. So, lastly, I wanted to take some time to talk about communication, and then what I was going to do is I was going to make an attempt at using the iPad to visually demonstrate what I'm trying to talk about. And this is my first attempt at talking to no one and everyone at the same time about communication, and so if I stumble, forgive me. This I'll only get better with time. So communication to me is one of the more important aspects of business. I mean, you could argue life in general, but specifically when we're talking about business, it allows a culture to grow and thrive. It allows for increased amounts of visibility, accountability, which leads to increased quality, and then like I said, it does have a direct impact on culture. And so to kind of go through just examples of all of this, like the visibility and accountability is, I don't know, what's the best way to approach this? Because the way I'm thinking about it is there's a pre-COVID and then a post-COVID. But so we'll just talk about it under normal circumstances. So you've got an office full of people. There is a lot of intentional communication, meaning that there are scheduled emails, meetings, and all this other kind of stuff. But then there's a lot of unintentional communication or unplanned communication in just the water cooler talk, or somebody walking over to somebody else's desk to talk about a specific issue. And this is I kind of mentioned this earlier with regards to the leaders. Like in those situations where you're in the office and you have those kind of impromptu conversations, the people involved obviously benefit, but everybody around also benefits, because they see what the person's up to, they hear what the person is dealing with, and then it builds and reinforces knowledge and a coherent strategy, for getting at whatever the end goal may be. And in some cases, it's like dealing with an escalation. So we've got client managers that deal with escalations from clients, and when they get to talking about different aspects of their clients, other client managers that are also involved benefit from that as well. And so, all in all, communication has that kind of direct result. And so those are the impromptu conversations. But then meetings are also kind of the same thing. You get a group of people together that do a similar job. They're all talking in front of one another about what it is they do, how they're tackling these issues, and then everybody generally approves or improves. And then also people get to have their own input. And there's a fine line when it comes to meetings and whatnot, as far as like frequency and who's in the meetings, and the meeting strategies are their own thing, because how do you make sure that people get together and don't just wind up wasting their time on a consistent basis? And that takes effort in and of itself, but we're not talking about that right now. What we're just talking about is the benefits or the impacts of we'll call them productive meetings, because they're definitely unproductive meetings. And then the impact on culture is in the same vein of what I was talking about earlier, with regards to just the I'm not doing a good job with the culture aspect of the communication. So say me as the CEO, like I'm not a good communicator, and issues come up and I'm dealing with them maybe one-on-one with somebody, but then I'm not communicating out the results or the specifics of it. Then nobody's learning, nobody has visibility into it, and then I'm not sharing what I've got going on with as many people as possible. That's still a bad thing. Let's just drop it for right now. We'll come back to it later. Should we drop it? Maybe not. So if you've got a culture that you're trying to be intentional about, and as I referenced earlier, like a lot more people are having to be intentional about their culture, then you've got to build the communication in to facilitate that culture. And so a good example with regards to G Squared is we follow like a Kaizen type approach to work, wherein anybody in the company can be a potential innovator, meaning that they can suggest improvements. And not all suggestions are great, but the ones that are, we need to make sure that we hear, and that we're and by we I mean like the leadership and the decision makers and stuff like that. So if your communication infrastructure isn't set up in a way to facilitate that type of communication, meaning if somebody that's a help desk agent has an idea to improve something, they have to be able to get that idea up the ladder or up the chain, or whatever analogy you want to use, but then also have the information or have a response come back down. So this is something I was talking about earlier this week with a couple other people, is that if you're going to say we want people to be innovators, then you have to be able to respond to everything, not just the good ideas. So say somebody sends you a proposal and it's absolutely terrible. If you don't address it, then there's no, from a cultural perspective, there's no growth, because that person just put something out and then to them nothing came back, so they just didn't like it. Whereas if somebody sends you something and you do have the capability to address it via your predefined communication strategy, then you're informing them as to why you may not have liked it, but then you're able to fill the gaps that they currently have and potentially improve that specific employee. And so that's why when I look at communication, I kind of I see it as as having two different axes. Like, so there's a YZ axis. No. Oh, an X and a Y axis. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've had to think about that. So you got an X and a Y axis, and so you need communication to be able to go up and down, and then you also need communication to be able to go laterally with regards to the departments. And so, like, I see it as looking something like this. And what happens is, like, this person over here needs to get some information to this person over here, and we'll call this person the COO. And this is, we'll just say it's a help desk agent. So you got the help desk agent, and then the COO, and this person needs to get something to that person. Well, they don't normally meet on a regular basis, and we'll just say, for the sake of this conversation, that it's not something that the agent is comfortable just bringing straight up to, or bringing into the COO, because we'll say the gap's too large, or they're uncomfortable for whatever reason. So what happens is the information has to travel laterally first. So it has to go to the central hub, and then from the central hub it goes up and then over. And so how we facilitate this is by meetings. All right. Well, it starts with the TLDRs, and then from the TLDRs goes through to the meetings. And so our lateral movement on the base level is what we call TLDRs. So the information starts with the agent, and then goes to TLDRs, and so the to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. So we do, like, the TLDRs are the weekly trainings that we do, and there's a portion in every TLDR where the trainer asks for feedback. Like, so what do you got? What do you think about? Do you have anything you want to bring up or anything like that? If they say yes, it's given to that trainer, and then that trainer takes it to, watch this, check this out, I'm going to move this. Move that down. Ooh, I moved it way down. Move it up a little bit. All right. So agent to TLDR, and then this is where, and so you could argue that the TLDR session is a meeting. It is. It's also a training, but it doubles as a meeting. And so from here it goes to the ops meeting. And for us, this is a short path because the COO is in the ops meeting. Actually, hang on. There's a better way to visualize this, but well, I'm not gonna worry about it right now. So the agent tells the TLDR trainer. The TLDR trainer brings it to the ops meeting and then shares it with the COO. And then you can add as many layers in here as you need to. And this is only for businesses, for medium-sized businesses, a couple hundred employees. I wouldn't say that this is the most optimal enterprise communication strategy at all. All I'm saying is for small, medium businesses, this is how it kind of works, or this is how it can work. So the COO gets it, and then you can start a decision tree from here. And so the COO has the information. And then you say, was the info good? And then from here you say yes or no. And depending on, there's a whole lot of dependencies in here for us. And so more often than not, the COO is not going to directly address every issue with the agent that brought it up. It'll be passed up and then passed back down, unless there's an opportunity to train, or if there's a noticeable amount of effort. So something I used to do when I was a COO is if somebody put a lot of effort into it, even if it was into like a proposal like this, even if it was not very good at all, I would give a similar amount of effort. And the reason for that is like, I don't care how piss poor your work is in the beginning, as long as you're trying, because the trying is what facilitates the improvement, and that's what I want more than anything else. And so I would give the effort. And so if the info is good, it would go through, it would move towards an implementation plan. And in this case, implementation would just be inclusion in whatever process we got, because we, like I said before, we're a Kaizen focused company, which means that we want everybody to be able to contribute, even if it's small. And so something that's small yet still significant is, like, say we can do something to save 2 seconds on a phone call. Well, if you do 2 seconds times the 15 to 20,000 phone calls per month, that's a large savings in time that is relevant for us. And so if you find 5 or 6 of those 2 second increases or decreases in time it takes to deal with a ticket or manage a task or whatever, then it gets very significant very quick. I guess that's the best way to put it. And so move into implementation. Is that right? And then no would be educate employee. Because some employees, this is where it gets to, like you deal with people, like some employees, like they're not giving you, they're trying to give you constructive criticism, but maybe it's not always in the nicest way. And so, regardless of that with us, it's the effort that counts. And so we'll still go in and teach the employee why something isn't what they thought it was, because they don't have visibility into the who, what, when, where, and why we do everything it is that we do. They just see something that they think could be improved for X or Y reason, and so they're giving it to us. And then if it's also delivered in a less than optimal way, then we also address that at the time too. And so another thing is an inform employee. Both of these end up with somebody addressing the issue with the employee. And so in this case, there's a process that picks up on both of these that we use to facilitate the communication back down. And so the trail it uses to go straight up is through the meetings, and then the back down, instead of it going through the meetings, because we're not going to send it all the way back down through the TLDRs and make each employee have their own kind of custom TLDR. We're gonna take it outside of the normal chain of communication and deliver it straight to the employee. And so, let's see here. Let me make sure I'm not skipping over some stuff. Okay, and so that's the like, I guess the first example I could give of like how communication works for us to kind of facilitate culture, because our culture is every person is an innovator, and then this is a piece of how we facilitate that. So then, if you've got a small, medium business, or if you're in a medium-sized business that where communication is not the greatest, then what do you do? Like, how do you step back and look at it? And so, just like I was talking about a second ago, does every single person in the company have the ability to communicate via the setup or the standardized communication channels with, like, the CEO, for instance? Do all of the meetings connect? And so the way we look at it is we have, let's see, we've got 5. I'm not going to draw out all this stuff. We've got 5 or 6 different standing meetings that we do every week, no matter what. And the reason we have those meetings is just for this. And so say you're a small company and you've only got like 10 people. Maybe your weekly meeting shouldn't be a weekly meeting. Maybe it should be a daily meeting, but more of like a informal, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, that's what I'm doing, this is what I plan on doing, this is what I planned on doing yesterday, that's what I actually got done. And the intent would be more accountability and just general sharing, because everybody, when you're at that small size, kind of does more than what their job description says. And that being the case, it's a little bit harder to standardize the meetings. You just need to make sure that you're meeting on a consistent basis and that you've got a plan to scale. Because what happens when you're growing is you consistently, or we at least, consistently broke communication, and probably will continue to break it until and then fix and all that kind of stuff. So the way I describe it is, you grow to a certain point, you break your communication, and you plateau out, usually in growth, and then you fix it and you grow. So it's grow, break, fix, and it looks like a step. So this is growth, this is when it's broken, and then this is the point at which you fix it, and then you can grow some more. And so and this is specifically with regards to scalability of communication, because whether you've got the operational capacity to scale is directly related to your ability to communicate. Because if you have poor, so one of the things that usually breaks in operations when you're growing is quality. So your quality suffers for one reason or the other. If you don't have the communication set up properly, you're not going to be able to identify where that's coming from until it's already past due, so to speak. So you're in a situation where you've got a pissed off customer, or you've broken some SLAs, or who knows what. CSAT scores could just be incredibly low relative to what you're normally getting, and a lot of that's because you're finding things out after the fact as opposed to proactively, which is what communication can help with. And so so let's kind of start building what a communication would be. So the easiest way to do this is to look at your hierarchy and kind of determine how many departments you've got. And then oh crap, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah. All right. So how many departments you got, and then how many levels of hierarchy? Oh, I'm gonna misspell this. You know what? I'm gonna look this up because I have no idea how to spell hierarchy. Rarchy. Ah, I got it. I do know how to spell hierarchy. So anyways, so levels of hierarchy, and this would be like C-suite, C-suite/exec. Then you usually got a director level, which would be the bridge between operations and business management. And then you've got operations. No, hang on, I messed up. You've got multiple levels of operations. We're going to call this middle management just for the sake of this. And then ops. And so these three levels right here are I may be getting this backwards, but they're below the line, so these aren't revenue generating. The ops is revenue generating. Usually these are the newest folks. They do the job day in and out. So for us it would be help desk agents, procurement agents, e-desk agents, logistics agents, and so we've got several different groups of people who are doing that. And so departments, we're going to call it, I'm just going to use ours as a reference. So we've got logistics, help desk. I'm going to do procurement and e-team in one. Support staff, which is middle management, and then we've got a director level group, which is very small. It's just one person at this point, and then we've got the exec group. So we've got 6 departments and a 4-tier hierarchy. All right. So then let's move this on up. And so what we've got to make sure is that each department has the ability to communicate internally and up and down, and so it's lateral and vertical. So we'll start with the bottom level, and this is kind of why I drew this right here as a tier, or as a tree, or a triangle, or whatever. Is because that's the most of your people are going to be your ops people. And so we've got these groups right here, and in this there is 4 departments. So let's see, help desk, logistics, and e-team / procurement. So we've got those 3. Is that right? Yeah, support, director, yeah. So we got those 3, and so each one of these you could consider like a 1, 2, 3, and 4. So each of these is a department on the entry level of communication, and so each one of these little circles represents a meeting that these teams have. And so there's, in each one of these meetings, there's a person who represents, and this goes more into meeting strategy, but there's a person who represents the ownership of the meeting. And usually that's a person from the tier up, because they're the people who are responsible for taking and maintaining the notes and then transferring the relevant information to a different meeting. And so we use a template in OneNote for all of our meetings, and we'll take specifically marked out things and put those in the meeting notes for the meetings going up. And that's the how we actually transfer the information, because we're not just leaving it up to that one individual to hold it in their brain or anything like that until the next time a meeting comes up. We provide the tools to structure the meeting on its own. And so each one of these things is a meeting. And so as of right now, they are not connected. So maybe this line isn't the best thing. So I'm working on this kind of live. Let me just do this. So 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings, and then we'll come up from all of these, and then we'll put the line. Because these meetings, like I said, they're not crossover meetings, so this folks from this group aren't talking to people from this group about information at this specific point. So from here, we've got our let me have to draw this out a little bit separately. So we've got our support staff meetings. So in support staff, there's 3 separate meetings in that. So maybe I think what we'll do is we'll do these out here. There's S, 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 O, O. And so these are all kind of the same as well. So this is the support staff. And from here it goes to the operations meeting. And so for simplicity's sake, like when it comes to like designing or like meetings, specifically with requiring meetings, you want to keep them as few as possible, because if you overdo it with the meetings, then you're just hurting productivity. There's a lot of just general negatives that come from holding too many meetings. So all of our support staff are representatives from all of the support staff meetings, and all of the operations meetings are then or all the representatives are present in the operations meeting. So the operations meeting has the meeting owners from all of these, plus the TLDR guys. So we'll just do a big circle over here for TLDR. So the TLDR guys are in here as well. And the majority of the stuff happens here in the operations meeting. So this meeting, tons and tons of stuff gets done, but say it doesn't get done. So there are 2 execs that attend this meeting, because the chief operations officer and the president of the company need to be involved in. We're not so big that they don't need to be involved in operations in some way, shape, or form. It's less than it used to be, and they don't necessarily manage the meetings anymore, but they're responsible for bringing stuff up to the executive meeting. Oh, you know what I could have been doing this whole time that I wasn't doing? Look at that. To the executive meeting. And so this is a simple way to kind of visualize how this stuff travels. And so let me do a color here. And so this red circle is going to be an agent, or an information that an agent shares. So something shared here, it travels up to the operations meeting here, and then if it's something that gets implemented or information that was relevant, then it goes on that path like I was talking about earlier, where we've got processes for implementing suggestions set in place. And it doesn't have to be something formal. It's just got to be something where you know that the individual who gave the information to begin with is going to have some sort of communication back. Because if you don't communicate with employees that give suggestions, they will in fact stop giving suggestions, and we don't want that in any way, shape, or form. And then from here, if it has to come up to the executive team, it just goes from there. And that doesn't seem like it's rocket science, and it doesn't seem like it would be difficult to do, but there's a lot of discipline that comes with all of this stuff. Because if you get lax on, so say if you're a meeting manager over here and you're getting lax with your whatever it is, like you're just letting everybody just chit chat for an hour and then you break up and cut out after that, then what you're essentially doing is you're taking yourself and your group out of the equation. And that's actually happened before, and we've had to deal with it by using different means. But what we found in the past were, like, from an operational perspective, like folks in here were not, they would be contributing just like folks in every other operational group, but what was happening was that the meeting manager right here was not running stuff up, and so it was providing a drastically different cultural response or cultural experience to the group in this little red square here than anyone else in the company. So the folks over in the other operational groups were being empowered. And then, in being empowered, it gives you visibility, because if you start hustling and folks notice it, and this is what happened to me, because when I started here, I was just an help desk agent. And then when I started putting in effort, it was appreciated, and that made me want to do it more and more and more. And then eventually I just started putting in for new jobs, I worked my way up. So the folks in these different groups that are in the line of communication have a higher chance of excelling, or like climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak, than the ones that are not. And so when you're evaluating all of this stuff, you've got to look for those types of things, because if your communication isn't complete, or say you've got one person who's kind of responsible for managing all of this, then it's up to their discretion, what gets moved up or over or whatever. And so as you're growing, and this is what we found, is that standardization of these types of communication channels is a necessity. Because like if say the group here they just started sucking pretty bad, you can't really put it any other way. So they've started performing poorly. I guess that is a different way to put it. Then you're not going to find out that they're performing poorly until a client lets you know, or until something bad happens. And in some cases, for us, it could be cost impacting, because either we have to pay SLAs or a department is making mistakes. And in some of the things we do, specifically with the procurement or plan changes, like if we make a mistake, it could cost our clients thousands of dollars. And if we do that on a regular basis, we're not going to be profitable, because we always have to pay the client back, because they're not going to have us making mistakes and then not paying for it. And so if you've got clear lines of communication, you're constantly evaluating your communication infrastructure, then you're less likely to be surprised. Now, in dealing with all of this, you've got to deal with the people aspect of employment, and that's a whole different thing that we're not getting into today. So anyways, that's the that's kind of the way to break it down. This is the way it works for us, and it looks pretty simple because a lot of it, like as you can tell, it's a lot of lateral stuff as opposed to vertical. But if you could imagine a company that's got 8 different tiers to the hierarchy, which it does happen. It's not very common in my industry, but it does happen. Then the communication can get muddled down, and you just don't know anything until it's way too late in most of the cases. Like I remember one time, because like I said, start with the hierarchy, and one time we were dealing with a partner where an individual we were having an issue with was her own boss in the corporate hierarchy, and so a claim submitted against her to for like a constant mistakes or something like that, or if an internal employee had an issue with like HR or something like that, the HR complaint, and this actually did happen, an HR complaint would be sent directly to them because they are their own manager, and most of the time when people are checking that out, they're not really paying that much attention. I digress though. But if you take the hierarchy levels and departments into consideration and make sure that everybody's included in at least one weekly meeting, specifically regarding ops or sales or whatever, then that's where you go. And this isn't necessarily everybody too, because I guess I left out so something else that's on this line. I just found a gap in our own stuff. So no, that's not right. We don't have a gap because we've got business development, that would be over here, and then the representative from business development is in the ops meeting, so these two are connected like this, which I already had them connected like that. And so when we were doing this, it took us a few weeks because we were trying to sit down and refine how many meetings is enough, how many's too few, how many's too many. And then does the information travel up and down and vertically or horizontally? And this like the actual structure that I have or that we have here doesn't look like this, but this is just an example of taking these random things into consideration, or these two things into consideration and building it. So in the beginning, it could just look like this. And this is your communication chain. If you're 8 people, this might be all you need. But as you grow, you've got to be aware that when things aren't going well, or you're getting too many knocks on CSAT scores or whatever your metrics are that you evaluate, that communication should be one of the first things you look at. Are we communicating enough, and is it official? Or are we accomplishing what we mean to by having these meetings? And then that's when at one point we broke our communications, and then we realized that we needed a specific format to our meetings, and so we built the format, and then from there just worked to improve the format. And the intent of the format would be to give everybody the ability to talk about what it is that they wanted to talk about, and then for that information to travel to where it needs to go. Because, so another sign that you're not having, or that your communication is messed up, is when you get finger pointing. So it's not us, it's them, is a big indicator that folks aren't communicating like they should, and that somebody somewhere, or some group somewhere, is too siloed. And what I mean by siloed is they're off to themselves, physically and or through this organization structure or communication structure. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in this kind of like haphazard communication thing is what this looks like pre-COVID versus post-COVID, and how that impacts the culture. So pre-COVID, there was a lot of this communication that happened naturally, and I alluded to that earlier in the the random encounters, or the like, I'm going to walk over and talk to this person about this issue because it's easy. They're here. We're all working on this thing together. Whereas post-COVID, the conversations are much more segregated. So even if I'm reaching out and talking to somebody, I'm just talking to that person, and nobody else gets any extra benefit to it. And so how do you deal with that? How do you produce the same levels of visibility without, at the same time, without overburdening your group or your folks or whatnot? And that is kind of a sensitive thing, because it's not always going to be clear cut. For instance, is like, we've gone, I think as a culture, we've gone from needing once a week meetings to having more regular check-ins, where the check-ins don't have the specific agendas going into it. It's more just like, do you have anything? Do I have any? What's been going on? Like, more general types of stuff. But then when you're in those meetings, you're capturing the information to then bring to a larger meeting. And the facilitation of just conversation in those cases could help out tremendously, especially when it comes to culture, because not only are our meetings a good time to be productive, but they're also a good time to vent or to release some of the stress you've been dealing with to people that completely and totally understand what it is that you're going through. And so in these cases, these touch points are more for what that is. And so what I don't have the answer for currently is what is the best number of touch points, because I've seen instances where people do a once in the morning touch point, or I've heard of instances where people are doing once in the morning. Maybe it's 30 minutes. I've seen 3 times a day. I've seen twice a day. I've seen 3 times a week. I've seen 2 times a week. And I don't know that anybody knows right now if there's a general idea, a good idea for the cadence of those types of touch points. But what does seem to be consistent is that they are less formal. And then if you hop on, you talk for 5 minutes, and then nobody really has anything, and you don't feel like talking about other stuff, you just get off. Like, there's no requirement that you stay in there for an hour. And it's not like there is with the operations meeting either. It's just, in the operations meeting, there's usually more of a specific agenda you're trying to get through with regards to projects and all of that kind of stuff. I will say, from the executive side of things, or just the business management side of things, like, since we're not in standard operations, touch points are probably the best thing for accountability, meaning that I can just kind of state what I intend to do today, and then at least I'll have somebody accountable. Because if I talk tomorrow, or if I talk to the same person tomorrow, and they'll be like, did you get that stuff done you wanted to get done before? Then I can say, yes, I did, and it was awesome. Or I can say, no, I didn't, and here's why. And I like to think there should not be that much judgment when it comes to getting the job done. But then at the same time, if you're consistently not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then there's at least the visibility to know that a conversation needs to be had. So those are my very erratic thoughts on communication in business. I don't think I've ever tried to put together a cohesive talk on that. Like, I've had some specific talks with a couple of people this week on their specific issues, but from a general perspective, I don't know. So if that was hard to deal with or hard to watch because it was too random or whatever, I would like some feedback on that. But then at the same time, know that I'll probably work this into a more coherent presentation at some point in the future, because these are the types of things that are relevant, and I find that my ability to articulate something drastically increases the chances of it becoming standard. And so right now, like, I'm more concerned with like post-COVID standards than anything else. So I guess lastly, I want to go into the COVID numbers for the area. So if you're not from Nashville or Davidson County and or Tennessee, this will probably be unimportant to you. But if you are from here, then let's look at this stuff, because this week we've got all of October done, and so here we go. Is it the second? It is the second. So last week for the state, we saw a decrease of 1,100 cases, which was nice. It's still the lowest week we've had since the middle of June, and it's continuously creeping down. Although I wouldn't say 1,100 is a significant decrease, it's still nice to see, as opposed to the city, where the city's kind of plateaued for the past, 6 weeks? Yeah. So it's been 2 or 3% since the latter part of August. I don't know if that's. I don't really know what's causing the plateau. All I know is it's not moving very much. One thing to note is that all of the state restrictions regarding social distancing and business limitations are gone. So restaurants and salons and all that kind of stuff are 100% capacity. If they want, it's up to the business. And then the 5 major cities in Tennessee, I guess it's the counties that they're in as well, are not, like, none of this stuff has happened, but the state is putting pressure on those cities and counties to get rid of their social distancing as well. How this is going to play out with regards to schools and stuff like that, I'm not really sure, because if they get rid of social distancing and then there's a COVID outbreak at a school, are they still going to close the school for cleaning or not? I guess time will tell with that. On a positive note, though, the month of September saw a pretty drastic decrease on the city side. 10% of the total cases came from September as compared to 17 in August, and then almost 40% in July. So July for us, like most of America, was the biggest month that we've had so far. But on the state side, we had a 4% decrease, which is it's still nice to see that, even if it may not be terribly drastic. And then but then the month before they had a 7% decrease. So overall, over the past 2 months, we've decreased 11% on the state side. So hooray! And then one thing to note as well is the age distribution percentages have not changed. So even though and I say this every week, but even though the city is virtual and the state is in-person school, or you get the option for in-person school, the percentages of age retraction, contraction, transmission have remained about the same. So if 0 to 10 was 7% in July or August, then it's remained 7% all the way through September, which I find to be extremely positive. And I guess that's about it. Didn't really get anybody in today. It looked like somebody showed up for 2 minutes, a minute. So there's no questions or anything like that. And I guess I'll go ahead and end the stream at this point. boy, I feel like I just muddled through all of that communication stuff. But I'll probably take the opportunity to redo it in the future. Now that I know I can't just impromptu throw down a good communication, or it may not be that it's not good, but it's not as coherent as I want it to be, and it's not as fluid as I'd like for it to be. But I may revisit it in the future with more visuals. I just thought it'd be cool this time to do to do it on the iPad, but then I forgot to do all of the new iPad tricks with regards to the scribble, except for moving stuff around, and I think I did one circle. But anyways, have a good weekend, and if you're watching this on the YouTubes, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you think.